My relationship with parks in Alaska began, in a way, within a few days of arriving here. It was 1964.
Came up here in '68.
Since 1999.
I've lived here like 55 years.
50 years.
And I moved to Alaska about 14 years ago.
I was born in Anchorage in 1959.
I've lived here since 1950. My name is Judy Bittner. I am with the Division of Parks and Outdoor Recreation. I am currently the Chief of the Office of History and Archaeology, and in that position, I am also the State Historic Preservation Officer for Alaska. I live in Anchorage, and so I visit the Chugach State Parks and also work with a lot of the historic parks around the state. They're very unique, often like the Chugach State Park, they're big and they're wild, and you can be close to an urban area and get into and experience some real wilderness.
I'm in the state parks all the time. I quite literally grew up in the state parks and along the bike trails in Anchorage.
These are treasures. I mean, you look at Alaska, it's one of the largest state park systems in the nation.
Denali State Park, Chugach State Park, Wood-Tikchik, Kachemak Bay, anywhere else in the country or the world, they would be national parks.
These are massive 500,000 acre state parks to 1.6 million acres. These things around us are like national parks in the rest of the nation, and to have these available to Alaskans and visitors for all these recreational opportunities is incredible.
Alaskans are just so fortunate to have these. The vision from the founders 50 years ago who worked and lobbied and created these parks has been an asset to all of us generations, and it couldn't be done today. We had an incredibly fortunate window in time where some visionary leaders came together and made this happen.
I used to be in there every day. Now it's a couple times a week. I live in Girdwood right next to the bike path, and I recreate there regularly with myself and my family.
Chugach State Park is exceptionally unique in that it composes most of the land in the municipality of Anchorage. It's set aside to protect the satisfactory water supply, open spaces for recreational facilities development, and it provides an opportunity for the people that is readily available for them to get out, especially now during this passing time of pandemic when it's obvious that people are using the park and need the park for relief from everyday stress coming with our current living situations.
State parks are kind of an interesting thing. There were, of course, national parks in our country perhaps long before there were state parks, and there were city parks, like the Boston Commons and some of those.
If there's ever a state park behind Anchorage, this valley would be a nice place to enter that park. It would be a beautiful way to get up there.
Pretty soon, people discovered, hey, we need something in between that. And so they got going on state parks and began to build one. Their goal was to have a state park about every 50 miles on the highway system.
And we took the next step. The next morning, that same morning actually, I went and got the USGS quad maps for all the land behind Anchorage. I sat at a friend and on the floor, my friend Warren Matthews, who's another founder of the park. He, Sharon Sistna, Pete Martin, several of us, Doug Bailey, we drew the outlines of what would become Chugach State Park.
When I came to Alaska in 1967, we'd only been a state for 8 years. And the state park system was started when the Bureau of Land Management gave us about 60 roadside parks. So about 1969, I decided to apply for the contracts to take care of some of those roadside parks, because it was all being done by contract then, and there was no ranger program. And I didn't get it. I was very disappointed, but I had quite a bit of experience as a ranger down the States with the Forest Service, the Park Service, and the BLM. So even though I was teaching school, I became a prime candidate when they started the ranger program in 1970. And I got the job as Nancy Lake Ranger in the first one. And that's a 22,000 acre park that, started the whole park system rolling. So then what? The next thing I remember is that we had Charles Lindbergh come up and address the legislature and tell us that we needed a state park system.
Then it was like a wildfire. Everybody loved the idea of having a state park. Everybody. Republicans, Democrats, hikers, skiers, people who sit at home and watch sitcoms, Everybody liked the idea, well, of course, we're Alaska, we're here. We love this country. Of course we should have a state park. And so we started holding meetings. We talked to people in the legislature. We had a potluck. Legislators signed on to it. And within several months, we not only had Chugach State Park, our first state park, the largest state park in the country, but with that momentum, with that feeling of, yes, let's take care of these places. Let's have these parks. Within that same year, I believe the same legislative session, we also got Kachemak Bay State Park and Denali State Park. And it was a beautiful thing, the way people came together and worked together. There were no egos like, well, this is for me to do and you go over there. And there really was no opposition. It was just a grassroots, heartfelt thing that came from so many Alaskans that, we love this country. We love the wildlife. And yeah, we're gonna have our cities and our highways, airports, hospitals, but we gotta have these parks. And that was the beginning of the state park system in Alaska.
I'm thankful that I had the opportunity for the last 48 years to be intimately involved with Chugach State Park, both as a public servant and as an avid user. I was hiking with a fellow named Dick Griffith a bunch of years back, and I met Dick way out in the middle of the park at Turbid Creek, and we both were working on the Crow Pass Trail. I spent the night with Dick at the Raven Creek cabin, and the next morning we hiked back to the Nature Center. But on the way, we had a special wildlife encounter. Dick and I were hiking about 20 yards apart, and we looked downstream, and there's a brown bear. And the brown bear is fishing. Its head's going back and forth, and it's after the salmon, late salmon that are coming in the river. Behind the brown bear was a wolf. A wolf is following the brown bear, picking up its leadings. And behind the wolf, the magpie's going back and forth. Well, the wolf spotted me, and it started going away, getting its distance, but the bear didn't. The bear was right down, facing the water, and moving towards us. And Dick was just standing there, and I was looking at him. He's my senior by a little while. And I'm looking at Dick. Dick, we got to call out. He's calmly watching the bear approach, And finally, I go, okay, hey bear, we're right here. And the brownie stands up, and it's just beautiful, dripping with water. Goes down on all fours and takes off up over the bank and then leaves. And I looked over at Dick, and he's still nonchalantly standing there going, what did you think, Pete? I was going to pull a Treadwell? And I laughed, and we continued on down the trail. And he doesn't talk a lot, but that was one of the more memorable experiences because we saw a bear, a wolf at the same time.
Favorite memory in the Chugach? Well, I'd say a couple of them were running Crow Pass and trying to trying to get ahead of the racers so we could pull out all their shortcut flagging. That was probably one of my favorite memories. To hiking it with just rangers, just traversing. We'd pick a spot and we'd go, we're going to go in an Indian and we're going to get out at this trailhead over here, and we'd have to pick our route over the top and figure out how to do it.
When I had dogs, I mushed my dogs up Powerline Pass and then up Presto Ramp and the wedge up into that Windy Pass, I think it's called. And so one of my favorite pictures of my whole career was up in that pass with my dog sled.
We used to spend every weekend up coming to Arctic Valley. When we first started coming, it was during the Cold War, height of the Cold War, and we'd have to pass through security at the base of the hill, and there was an armed soldier, and you had to go through, put chains on your skis or on your car, and to get up the hill. So although it was already a concession, but it was still within the public lands and then the Chugach State Park.
Founding director of Friends of Nike Site Summit. Site Summit, you see right up there, there's a lower site and the upper site. I literally grew up in the shadow of it. It was operational from 1959 to 1979. And we knew about it, but we really didn't know what it was until I got involved with the organization in 2007. It turns out there are 145 Nike Hercules missile sites around the country. Out of those 145, only 2 had test fires. Site Summit and a site up in Fairbanks. There are actually Nike Hercules missile boosters planted in the tundra behind Arctic Valley on the other side of the ridge here. One of the trails we're trying to build will go by there. We started an effort to save the site. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, and we conduct tours up there now, and it's just awesome. There were actually nuclear weapons. These were nuclear missiles here, and we didn't know that growing up.